Hi guys, today we're going to look at the gap between supply and demand for beautiful architecture. We'll start with why supply is low. Beautiful architecture is often a public good, it's often city owned and city funded, and it is free for public to visit. So building the architecture is often very expensive, and the city has to take it out of its budget somewhere and find the money for it. So the city doesn't have a ton of money to just build beautiful architecture, so they don't make a ton, which is why supply is low. But demand is very high because people love beautiful architecture. It brightens up the city. People will go there on their day off to see it. People even travel just to see architecture. So demand is very high, and we need to figure out how we can bridge the gap. So I've come up with two solutions. We could put a fee on the architecture, so when you want to go see it and take pictures and spend a day somewhere, you'd have to pay a fee to visit the architecture and see it. And that would lower demand because some people aren't willing to pay to see the architecture. So that would bridge the gap a little bit. But then the architecture is all of a sudden generating revenue that can go back to the city to make a budget for new architecture. So we'd have money to build more architecture and demand would be cut a bit. So that would bridge the gap. Or the city could put a tax out that generates revenue specifically for the architecture. But in that case, people who don't necessarily go look at the architecture or wouldn't be one of the people willing to pay to go see it would all of a sudden have to pay for it. So that could upset a lot of people. But either way, the only way to really bridge the gap between the supply and demand is to build more architecture, because we're not going to be able to cut the demand enough that we aren't going to need to build more. So the main fix is we do have to build more architecture, but we have to generate the revenue in either using fees or taxes so that we can build more.